Oh
Now
boy.
we're gonna get into Jill Scott taking some heat for coming to Chris Brown's defense, and she didn't even really come to his defense. She just admired his talent. And I guess in the world of social media, you can't do that because to admire Chris Brown as a talented artist means that you are in favor of abuse. I guess that's the conclusion
Yes.
that I guess that's the conclusion here. But Jill Scott, man, and who really has a problem with Jill Scott? Like no one has a problem with Jill Scott.
You
Like
would
you know,
think, right?
yeah, right. Like she's Jill Scott. You know, she's not controversial, but she got slammed on social media because she showed appreciation for Chris Brown, and more specifically his talent. And I guess people who are not Chris Brown fans, they came out there to voice their displeasure with the fact that she went so far as to say, "I think Chris Brown is a crazy talented dude." So this says Jill Scott slammed by fans for defending Chris Brown following abuse allegations. The internet wants Jill Scott to take a long walk and think about her controversial support for Chris Brown. On Sunday, the Grammy winning singer was hit with backlash from fans after she praised the fellow entertainer for his talents despite multiple abuse allegations and his guilty plea for assaulting Rihanna 15 years ago. At Chris Brown is amazing. How does anybody sing like that, dance, look, act, and rap like that? Beyond gifted. It appears exceptional people have to go through exceptional bleep. There's nothing to debate. Scott, who's 52, wrote on X. One of the Golden Crooner's 1 million plus followers fired back at her post writing, "I think the women he's abused would disagree."
Oh.
Scott then defended Brown by revealing a personal anecdote about her mother's violent ex husband, who was also a skilled craftsman. "I doubt it," she replied to the fan. "My mother's ex husband," and this is where Jill Scott went wrong here. Um, "My mother's ex husband was a mean, violent human, and he could lay foundation better than anyone in my city. What he did with cement was awe inspiring. We got away. He got a raise and praise for his family. God dealt with the rest." Another ex user argued, "I love you, Jill, but he has so many domestic abuse cases. It's ridiculous. We can't look past that." To which Scott replied, "I love you too. I'm not here to fight anyone else's battles. If, since women hear the stories, they should avoid that street. Running backwards in moving traffic makes zero sense. Therapy for every damn body." Outraged over the hate on me singer stance, her followers wasted no time criticizing her for victim blaming and sticking up for Brown. Jill Scott crashing out over Chris Brown and victim blaming women that were abused. She is not well. Jill Scott victim blaming Chris Brown's victims was not on my 2024 bingo card. I'm not super surprised about Jill Scott's take on Chris Brown because I remember the disappointment I had when she spoke in defense of Bill Cosby, for which
Oh.
I believe she later apologized. And then there were other people who actually came to Jill Scott's defense. Here's some of that here. "I feel like Jill is speaking to the talent and all Chris Brown has been through. I don't think she was thinking about the other side at all. Y'all mad because Jill Scott called Chris Brown talented? Is he not? No way y'all are seriously dragging the Jill Scott because she called Chris Brown talented. Y'all truly have to realize that not every artist is going to have the same opinion on him like y'all on social media do. I love Jill Scott. I understand exactly what she's saying. I also understand that people choose to not ever support Chris Brown again. I think that people should be left to each individual, though. I think that should be left up to each individual, though. I don't agree with the trend of jumping down people's throat because they don't agree with you. Scott seemingly addressed the backlash in a separate post on X on Sunday. "Look, years of prayer, therapy, self reflection, and making every effort to keep my feet on the ground has made me compassionate for other human beings," she wrote. "People go through bleep and do terrible bleep. We say we believe in God, pray for enlightenment. We are a living testimony." Scott didn't immediately respond to Huffington Post request for comment. So Jill Scott got somewhat dragged for expressing appreciation for Chris Brown's talent. A lot of people did not appreciate the fact that she was doing this because of his previous history with his allegations. So, what do you make of the social media treatment that Jill Scott went through as a result of just saying that she appreciates Chris Brown as a talented guy?
To me, I think it's multi-layered. I think there's a lot going on here, but on the surface, I would say that um, I would have saw that tweet and kept it moving if I followed her. I wouldn't have liked it. I just would have kept it moving. I wouldn't have saw anything wrong with it. Whenever I hear anything Chris Brown, I really don't. I don't go down the rabbit hole. I don't do that. I know that's part of his history, but I don't go the abuse route. I really don't think about it like that. I know it's there, but there's some people. Now, this is the part where it gets a little caveaty, is that there are a lot of victims out there. Some victims who did report, some victims who didn't. A lot of victims who never got closure. And they're constantly carrying that backpack around. And what Chris Brown represents is a man who can abuse women and get away with it. So if there was a board in their house where they were throwing darts at it, Chris Brown's picture is up there because he is a poster child, if you will, of domestic violence. And this is for the women who really feel the victim, like, because they are victims, but they really internalize that. And a lot of women crusade against abusive men, just in general. So yeah, so he just serves as a poster child. He'll never get this off his resume. It'll forever be following him around for the rest of his life. The part about it that I find a little like, whatever is, this is an entertainer talking about another entertainer's talent. So I didn't, I would agree. This guy can dance his ass off and backflip, dunk a basketball, rap, right? Slaughtering Quavo, making Quavo look like I don't know what, boy. The rap game is in a state of duress right now. When Chris Brown, yeah, Chris Brown, R&B dude, a singing dude, a dancing dude, just bodied him. But Chris Brown's from a different era, man. You know what I'm saying? These new people can't keep up, apparently. But anywho's, yeah, man. So I I'm not here to get on the victims who feel that way or the people who just associate or allies of victims. This is a touchy subject. And whenever you get to, just throwing stuff out there and, trying to make it seem as though it's not important, because it's very important in their world. So yeah, he just has that mark. He's been branded for life with that, and he's going to have to live with that. And anybody that comes out and vouches for him, for the most part, is going to feel the shock. So I'm not surprised about that, at least. So what are your thoughts on the internet going crazy on Jill Scott? Do you feel as though that is justified or what?
Question for you, real quick.
Mhm.
Do you think if Jill Scott had prefaced her comments by first saying, I do not condone any of Chris Brown's alleged past behavior and I don't excuse it. Like if she had said something like that, if she had put a disclaimer out there before she went into talking about his talent, do you think that the backlash would have been the same?
Um, Not the same, but she still would have got some for saying that it's alleged. If
Mm-hmm.
she said that, because they would be
Okay,
like,
well then let's take the alleged part out. Let's just say
okay,
straight up, if
mm,
she were to be like, I don't condone his past as an abuser, basically leaving nothing to the imagination that she thinks that he did it. Do you think
nah,
that the backlash would have been any different?
it would have been different, but it would have still been there. I'm just saying, just because it's like you can't just throw that under the rug. He still did
Yeah.
that. There's still
Hmm.
going to be those people, and
Yeah.
and my point that I was trying to make is that those people are not coming off of that, and it's due to them living with that abuse daily. It
Yeah.
happened 5, 6, 10, 15 years ago, but they still live with it daily, and it's constant reminders. And his face is, like I said, is the poster child of that abuse. So any type of advocacy for that It's actually the advocation of the person that abused them. So they just don't jive with any of that. So she still would have caught some for the people that feel that way. So what are your thoughts though, man? I don't know. Let me see what you say.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I do think that it wouldn't have mattered. I don't think it would have made a difference. And my point in asking you that question was to kind of show that in an instance like that, there's really nothing that people like Jill Scott can do to ward off that from happening, because it's going to happen. In the was that the second topic that we did, I talked about how social media has shrank the world. It's made the world smaller.
Mhm.
And so it has put people in positions and situations in which they can more regularly reckon with and confront whatever traumas they're dealing with. And it can come from limitless places, and it can come from limitless places. It just doesn't matter. Like it's boundless in terms of the amount of avenues with which you can confront your various traumas, past trials and tribulations, and situations like that. For anybody who is someone who's experienced abuse or whatever, you can hit up any kind of chat, social media post, mention, whatever. It doesn't matter. If you chose to, you could come into direct contact with anything that incites that throughout the course of any given day, multiple times a day.
Mhm.
So it really, it sort of, that to me sort of crystallizes why someone such as Jill Scott can make comments like that and deal with the backlash, even though in a vacuum any reasonable person can understand that she's not excusing anything that he may or may not have done.
Right.
She's not saying that he's a good person. She's saying that he's a talented entertainer. But I think people spend so much time, and this isn't really an echo chamber thing. It's more so just people spend so much time consuming content for hours on end every single day. If you are someone out there who has been through stuff before, I would imagine that in a roundabout way, if you are on this thing and you spend enough time on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, any of these apps, it can even be dating apps. It doesn't matter what the app is. If you spend enough time consuming any of this content on a daily basis, you are going to regularly come into contact with something that can trigger something that you've been through. And it can be something that seems rather innocuous and unrelated, but for whatever reason, the vibrations and the patterns in your brain have you click back to what you were going through at that time when you experienced that. And so my point in bringing that up is people are just generally speaking on edge more now than they were in previous times. People are instantly people are triggered more quickly now than they ever have been. You can make a simple statement or comment about basically anything, and it can just trigger something in the recesses of your mind that takes you back to that place.
Mhm.
When you're constantly on edge and when you're always thinking about these things, or when you are so easily incited or triggered, someone such as Jill Scott, who said that's a talented person, can put you in the mind in the state of mind in which you're going to criticize those comments because it's just going to take you right back there.
Right.
And it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It just means that we are in this interconnected world via the internet, and we live on it so much 24 hours a day that our bandwidth for content that is going to set us off and trigger us, we have a very, very low bandwidth for it, meaning
Mhm.
our tolerance for it is extremely low. And the slightest little thing, boom, there it goes. Now we're offended. Now we're mad. Now we're upset. Now we're defensive. Now we want to tell everybody how we feel. Now we need to get this off our chest and tell the world how we feel about it. And these celebrities have to toe that line because part of them being in the public eye, these musicians, these athletes, these various other peoples, they feel this weird sense of obligation to be a part of social media and to say stuff.
Mhm.
But when you feel that weird sense of, I gotta say something, I need to be a part of the world and say stuff, I gotta tweet this, I gotta post this, you're gonna step in it. You're gonna step in it.
bro.
and you didn't do
We done stepped in it a few times in
right.
it.
Yeah, like you're gonna step in it and you're going to do something wrong. You're gonna piss off a lot of people
Yeah,
inadvertently. You're gonna piss off a lot of people.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it just is what it is. Like to me, she made the mistake when she decided that she was going to try and clarify or
Yeah,
qualify what she said.
agreed.
Just leave it alone.
Yep.
Let it go. Because all you're gonna do is just start the rabbit hole of a long message thread of more and more people getting involved and more people telling you where you went wrong with how you shouldn't have said what you said in the first place. She should have just left her. She should have just posted what she posted and let it stand.
Mm-hmm.
And if the heat on that is getting too much that you're uncomfortable, delete it. But to come back and try to qualify your statements, you're just going to continue to step in it because there's no way out of this thing. Like there's a fork in the road and each direction is going to lead to a dead end. And there's no you if you try to U-turn, you just end up back at the fork. But there's no way out. So that's where she went wrong with this thing, but it's really more so a microcosm of the way that humans in general are just naturally on edge as a result of how interconnected we are via these various platforms.
Mm-hmm.
It's made people more on edge and more triggered across the board. It doesn't matter what the subject matter is. I can put out anything having to do with any. It doesn't matter what I'm talking about. It can be a sports take. It can be a relationship take. It can be a politics take. It can be a social issues take. It doesn't matter what I put out there. If I have that big a platform, it's going to piss off a lot of people, no matter what. It's impossible to not piss people off.
That's true.
And I think very much like that orange man, the Republican nominee for president. I think very much like him. Lightning rods like Chris Brown make it convenient for people to tap into their triggeredness
Yeah.
because he's such a lightning rod because of his history. But be that as it may, people are so naturally on edge nowadays that it doesn't matter what you say, how innocent you think what you're saying is, it's going to rub someone somewhere the wrong way. And it's like, I kind of feel where she's coming from. All she did was say he's a talented dude. She wasn't excusing his behavior, but to a lot of people out there, to big up his talent is to excuse his behavior. It's the
Correct.
exact same thing.
Okay. Yes.
So best to just not step in it. If you want to, I'm not telling these people not to say nothing. I'm just saying don't continue to step in it. Just let what you say stand and keep it moving. Let the
Mhm.
community, let the crowd, let the world out there comment on whatever it is that you put out there. But when you try to qualify your statements, you're just going to step in it even further. So I kind of feel bad for her. And I feel bad for her because Jill Scott ain't never did nothing to nobody. All she did was make her earthy music and star in those Tyler Perry movies. That's all she ever did. She ain't trying to hurt nobody. But even someone like such as her who ain't trying to hurt nobody isn't above the fray when it comes to inadvertently stepping into stuff and catching strays from the internet world because that's just kind of the way things are. Everybody's just on edge and easily triggered.
Yeah, she gave like a Magic Johnson tweet. Yeah, bro, I gotta send you this. I gotta send you this Magic Johnson. It was literally like 2 days after we had did that topic. It was like not W. It was college basketball. This girl had did some crazy move, and the paragraph that Magic wrote was just absolutely iconic.
Not no, he remember he ain't write it. He ain't write it. His PR team wrote it. They just posted it on his page, but he
It
ain't
was
write it.
great. I was rolling, bro. I hope I saved it. But yeah, man. So yeah, I don't know what made her unmute and say that. That was just, but like you said, it's kind of one of those things where they feel obligated to be engaged with the followers. Bro, this shit's so cringe. So she just felt like she had to say something. And much like how we tell Meek Mill, who else? Tyrese. They need to when it's getting hot. I feel like all of these people should have somebody they should call and hey, help me clean this up. Like a social media PR person. I feel like they should have that on staff already if they don't already. But there definitely needs to be somebody to call as soon as they start seeing a backlash. And then, they pick up and like, hey, what's going on? What happened? Well, I tweeted this and this is going on. And they're going to say, how long it's been up? About 17 minutes. Okay, just delete it. And then problem over. But she took it upon herself, as we said, and she tried to unpack that. What you bringing up the abusive stepfather for? You don't care how well he laid the stuff if he was terrorizing y'all's home.
Right.
This point ain't making sense. So yeah, he can make the world happy, but if he's a monster behind closed doors, is this really a good man? So you're proving these people's point by saying this. It's a weird little thing. And then she's coming back and saying all these disjointed things that it's like, who's putting this together? As a poet, I would think she would be better with her words, but I felt like she was trying not to offend so much by saying what she was right, and she was saying nothing. And so, yeah, she should have consulted somebody. I really feel like, PR firms or consultant companies really need to pave that lane if they aren't, already doing that, because that sounds like a lucrative business to me. But and consult me. It's at Dogon SS. All right, underscore. All right, just go ahead and hit me up, and I'll change your social media career. Now, as far as everything else is concerned, man, hey man, you're on point, bro. There's a lot of stuff online all the time that gets people triggered, man. I be on. Sometimes I gotta log off of certain things. It's like,
Yes.
hey man, y'all aggravate me right now. You know what I'm saying? I feel like the algorithm is purposely trying to piss me off. So I said, let me get up out of here, And so, but there's some people, man, who grew up without adequate coping strategies. Um, some people don't even know that they should shut it off. And so people that tend to get abused, like I mentioned and you mentioned, they tend to pretty much like live in that world, constantly being reminded of it. And that's what therapy's there to help for, to help deal with that trauma whenever it comes up. But there's so many people, like I said, reported and unreported, that walk around with this every day, and they walk around on edge, as you mentioned. So it's these people want their voice to be heard somehow, some way. And so, yeah, man, you really got to be mindful when you're saying certain things. But me, I probably would have fell in this trap too. I didn't know Chris Brown was so repulsive
Oh
still.
yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I didn't know that she couldn't even say that though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I knew the APB was out, but
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's wild business, man. But I guess it's another thing where it's like, I guess somebody else could have said it, but not you, Jill Scott. The person that is supposed to be for women's rights, standing up for us and being a soul sister. Why are you standing for one of our sisters getting struck down like this? So it might be also a Jill Scott angle where they feel like we expected more from you. So, and again, that comes from, the reputation of having a holier than thou persona. She a woman who takes a number two just like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, you know, her brand is that she's this soul sister who's in touch with the right kind of being in touch. And that sounds like an out of touch kind of tweet from a woman who's supposed to be in tune with the sisterhood. And so I think that's the angle that, because I'm pretty sure anybody else, because I've seen people bigging up Chris Brown for his diss track. Everybody been, some people can say it in this context, but not her, not an ambassador for the sisters, the Shea Butter community. So, look out, guys. Black Twitter is not having this. Hey, I'm not saying anything positive about Chris Brown on Shea Butter Twitter. Not doing it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like if a rapper said that, I don't think anybody would have. I don't think it would have been as noisy. I think it's who she is and what she represents. So
Yeah.
that's a good point. You're right about that. That is a good
Mm,
point. I hadn't thought about that.
yeah.
But be that as it may, she might represent that. She might be a representative for the sisterhood, but she
Mm,
is also a musical artist. And I
yeah.
know that she appreciates other musical artists
Right.
who she perceives to have talent.
Right.
And all she was doing in that moment was saying, "This is a very talented guy." But it's just That's what I'm saying, man. Like you could do this 15, 20 years ago. You can't do this anymore. Like in this shrunken, interconnected world that we live in, your human history is attached to your art in ways that are inextricably bound, and you can't do anything about that. And that's just the way things are. And so for people like Chris Brown can go on to win 20 Grammys in a year, and somebody says, man, that's crazy. He's so talented. He just won these 20 Grammys. You're going to get a lot of people who going to say, that's not the time to talk about this because of what he did to Rihanna 15 years ago. And it just is what it is because you can't separate art from artists. We are well past the days where art is separated from artists. Like that no longer is a thing. It doesn't exist anymore. So I think she probably is someone who just didn't realize the severity of that, or maybe she did and she thought that she was smart enough to kind of qualify it to make it seem like
That's what I
she's
think.
on the
Yeah.
right side of it. But there's no qualifying that. There's no amount of genius that you're going to be able to employ to get people to see it your way. It's just not going to work, you know. Just put your thing out there and just let it live. And if it's too hot, get rid of it.
Delete
But
it.
the repeated qualifications just make you step in it even worse.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
it's unfortunate, because I've always been someone who believed in separating art from artists. I can say this person is despicable, but then also say, man, they do great work. But to communicate that publicly, the world just doesn't work on that dime anymore. You are your art as a human, and that's just kind of the way we perceive these things now.
Yeah. Hey, like I said, Jill Scott, anybody else, it's at Dogon_SS. I charge $100 for the initial consultation. Um, then after that, we can talk numbers. But
Yeah,
yeah, just DM me and I'll save your Twitter careers. Meek
yeah.
Mill, I'm not doing business.
I was waiting for that.
I ain't doing business with Meek. Anybody else, bro, hit me up, man. We're not
Get out of
taking
here, Meek.
yeah, we're not
Yeah,
taking inboxes from Meek Mill.
$100 for the consultation and a like and subscribe on the channel.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
Follow suit.